Hello, this is Gary Audin, and I'm bringing you a telecom reseller, GENBAND EDUcast, the title of which is SIP Trunking, Ready for Prime Time. With me today is Ashish Jain, Director of Solutions Marketing for GENBAND, and he and I are going to have a conversation about several topics relating to SIP trunking. But to start off with, what is it you're going to learn in the SIP Trunking EDUcast? Why do we have trunks in the enterprise? Looking at the adoption curve, adoption rationales for SIP trunking, benefits, PRI to SIP transformation, because that's what you're going to be going through. But then also talking about how you deal with multiple vendor environments when we're dealing with SIP trunking, some of the challenges you can encounter with SIP trunking, especially interoperability, and a few ideas about deployment models and guidelines. And I'd like to start off with Ashish with this first slide, which really demonstrates to me how many different places a SIP trunk can be encountered.
Yeah, great. Gary, this is a very fast adopting phenomena here in the enterprise. Enterprises are moving into what I call them a new enterprise, the next generation enterprise. If you look at them, the fundamental characteristics that are changing in an enterprise is they're becoming a 24/7 operations. There's no 9 to 5 call centers or 9 to 5 operations. We're always working, and we're working and we're connected globally through our partners, through our offices, and more we are mobile. The mobility is a de facto standard of the enterprises today in terms of having people working from home, or they're on the road and still connected back to their enterprises, communication systems and other systems where they can still leverage all the capabilities that they would have when they're sitting in the office. More and more enterprises, if you look at globally, have multiple offices, and they want a unified experience across all their branches and offices that they have. And an adoption of cloud-based technologies, more and more data center-based technologies, and having flexibility, whether you want to do something in-house or you want to leverage a third party for some software as a service functionalities. So all that is really bringing a new dynamic into how the enterprises needs to architect their next generation communication systems. So that is where SIP becomes extremely relevant and important, because it provides that flexibility to them and having the connectivity all over they want in terms of remote offices, in terms of cloud technology, in terms of the regular PSTN phone numbers that they want to dial out, connecting with their partners, and having consolidation across all their offices that they have in the network. So SIP is really the new PRI.
What that tells me is what I can do with it. What I really like to know is what's driving me. Why should I do this? And you have some interesting statistics here.
Yeah, this came out from a survey that Infonetics does every year on the adoption of SIP. By the way, a SIP trunk is like I said, is becoming a phenomenon in terms of the enterprise. Is already nearly a quarter of the trunks that are deployed out in the market for communication services are already SIP, and it is growing, and we expect them to be more than 50% in the next couple of years. What is really driving the adoption is a couple of key areas here. One is there's a lot of cost and operational benefit that it brings in, and a lot of time people ask me, is it really okay? So is a SIP trunk cheaper than a PRI trunk? I mean, there's no direct answer to that, because it depends on the service product you are working with. But the operational and cost benefit it brings in is, one, that when you have multiple offices across either within the country or internationally, it brings in the benefit that you can do a lot of consolidation across multiple sites, multiple systems, and can really optimize the number of trunks you would actually need. In a PRI world, you would actually have a PRI running in each of your office, and the way PRIs are structured, they grow by 23 channels each. So there's a lot of stranded assets and wasted capacity that is in the network that is not utilized in a PRI model. SIP grows by a session at a time, and you can really architect the capacity that you would actually need in your network. So it brings a lot of cost and operation benefits that way. On top of that, SIP brings a lot of advanced functionalities for sure, more than what you had with PRI. I mean, it brings your HD voice, it brings you instant messaging presence, it brings you mobility and many other such advanced features that you would need to function in this next generation enterprise needs. So those are the two key benefits that are driving the adoption of SIP. The first point, I said here, reliability is no longer a concern. SIP, when the technology came out, there was a lot of concern about, because it's an IP-based technology, whether it's secure or not, and all such concerns are actually gone now. They're actually viewed as more reliable because it allows the way you can structure your network to have more disaster recovery handling in the network. Because if your one network goes away, you still have mobility. You can still accept the calls on your mobile devices. You can automatically move to an alternate data center. It gives much more flexibility and reliability in the network than a traditional TDM network had ever given. So those concerns have gone away. So having the concerns gone away, bringing the cost benefits and enabling new capabilities is really motivating enterprises to adopt this technology.
Yeah, you're bringing up a lot of good points about what's driving it, what we can do with it, but the problem I have is many times is there's always challenges with a new technology, even though there's benefits. How do we balance those out?
Yeah, so it's a great point. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's 25% of the enterprises adopting, but considering the technology benefits, that to me is low. And so there are certain transformational challenges that needs to be considered. I'm going to focus on a few besides whether the service providers are offering them SIP trunks or not, whether their existing contracts with the PBX vendors are up for renewal or not. Those are other challenges that are slowing it down, but there are a few technical transformational challenges that I'm going to talk about. And one of them is the fact that SIP as a protocol is a best practices protocol in my view. Everyone has a different implementation of SIP, and if you get into an environment where you have multi-vendor implementations, which is more and more common, if you have an enterprise that has grown through mergers and acquisitions, you typically would end up into multiple PBX systems, multiple UC systems. So you're trying to bring in new technologies into the network of using for unified communications. And although they all talk SIP, there's always different variations of SIP implementation by those vendors. So having them to interwork and function in a consistent way is a fundamental challenge that the enterprises are facing in the network, or in transforming completely to a SIP network.
One of the points I noticed when SIP first came out is that every vendor had a different interpretation of SIP, and every service provider had to know what vendor you had to make it work. Is that correct?
That is still the case. I mean, that's why I'm saying. I mean, the interworking with PBXs and each having their own nuances of how they implemented SIP and how they interpreted the SIP protocols, that still happens. I mean, and Microsoft Link, as an example that you're showing on this chart here, having a SIP trunk running for Cisco with Cisco PBXs is not the same as running with Link, Microsoft Link. I mean, so those are fundamental differences. And then if you, within your own network as an enterprise, trying to connect a subscriber or a user, or an employee behind a Cisco PBX to an employee behind a Link PBX, they might not talk and they might lose some functionalities. So those challenges are still out there, and those are the fundamental challenges that are actually slowing down the enterprises to completely get rid of the TDM network and move completely to SIP.
One point I would like to sort of bring up is most people think of SIP trunking as connecting to the PSTN. You're going beyond that in creating an internetworking solution. Is that correct?
That is correct. So SIP trunking is twofold. One is connecting with your service provider to go off net, and then the SIP trunking to connect all your internal branch offices and headquarter offices. So and that is where you actually get most benefit of SIP trunking, because now what happens is you're consolidating your trunk capacity on all the sites into a central location or a few locations where now you can architect the capacity that you really need in the network. And so there's a tremendous cost benefit of doing that.
Now, there's got to be a solution to this, and I think the next slide covers that, the session border controller. Would you address that, please?
Sure. So interworking, as I said, is a fundamental challenge. Now, session border controllers have been deployed in the enterprises, and they're getting more and more adoption in the enterprise. One thing I do want to say is SBC has been viewed a lot for a security device, and it definitely serves that purpose in the network. But one very important problem it solves for the SIP trunking or the SIP migration is this interoperability challenge. Session border controller provides some really great capabilities in terms of solving these interoperability challenges, because it is designed to be a back-to-back user agent, first of all, so it can see on what's on the left side of its network to the right side of the network, and it can make appropriate adjustments in the signaling and media to make the two sides of the networks talk to each other properly. So it brings a lot of benefits in terms of interoperability. Another key benefit it brings to enterprises is getting more control and visibility to manage the quality of service they're getting from their service provider. So if you're getting a SIP trunking service from a service provider for sure is deployed on SBC in the network, no doubt about it, because they are protecting their own network, they're providing all the session management capabilities from their network core. But as an enterprise, you also need an SBC, and the reason for that is, one, like you very correctly pointed out, is you are also consolidating your own network. So you need to assure interoperability across different vendors that you have within your network. Also, more and more enterprises are looking for multi-vendor, multi-carrier strategies of deploying SIP trunks. So having an SBC of your own, then it actually gives you that flexibility to decide when to use one vendor, one service provider versus another for SIP trunking. And it gives you the control. The most important part, which I'm trying to convey here, is the quality. Because now you have an SBC at the edge of your network, you see what's going in and what's going out, and what you see in your part of the network and what you see on the WAN side of the network, and can appropriately point out where the problem actually occurs. So you can actually control whether you're getting the quality for the SIP trunking that you actually bought.
Two conclusions I can draw from what you just said. One is the SIP trunking device, this SBC, stands between the customer and the carrier, so it has a visibility in both directions. And secondly, the SBC can actually be used to increase business continuity. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So now, let's talk about what you and GENBAND do with the SBCs and the interfaces you can support.
Yeah, so GENBAND has been in the SBC business for past over 10 years now, and so our legacy has been in the service provider space, and we offer SBC solutions to the enterprise as well. And one thing coming from an SBC space in this and been deployed in the service providers and both in enterprises, one problem we saw is every PBX you go out and connect with has some other nuance. Right, so one or the other thing you have to adjust to make that SIP trunk work, and it was a cost and time challenge, both for enterprises and service providers, in terms of either getting an enterprise on board or having an enterprise deploy the SIP trunking services faster the way they want. So they spend weeks and weeks of cycles to make sure the SIP trunk service is working with the PBX they have, and going through all the testing that needs to do. And the moment you change a version, you have to do that all over again. So one thing we noticed that as a problem, and the way we solve that is by taking that ownership as an SBC vendor and say, okay, we'll maintain the profiles of different PBX versions that are out there. So we have built nearly 70 plus profiles of these PBXs, and you can see on the left-hand side here, different type of major PBXs, and down to even their individual release numbers, that what are the different characteristics and what change in that, we track it, and we make sure the SIP can be normalized the way it needs to be going back to the service provider. So making it easy for both the service providers to deploy and offer their SIP trunk services, and for enterprises to adopt SIP trunking from a service provider and internally within their own network.
That diagram on the bottom right called SIP message manipulation brings up a point that I think is real important, and that is most people think of SBCs as converting codecs and maybe one kind of SIP to another, but you're saying individual message content has to be converted as well, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So that's where the implementation variations comes into play, right? So one vendor did a call diversion or call transfer one way versus someone else did another way, right? So how do I handle that? So you have to go down into actually SIP messages and see what's the behavior of an Avaya PBX versus a Cisco PBX, and who am I connecting with, right? On the left hand side and the right hand side, and then based on those release numbers or PBX profiles, you see, okay, oh wow, okay, oh I'm getting a message from Avaya, and I'm now going to a Microsoft Link or a Cisco. This is how it actually needs to look like because they understand it this way.
So what you're telling me is even though two vendors support SIP and they support SIP trunks, they cannot be directly interconnected. Is that correct?
It is definitely the case. Not always. And we're solving this. So we've packaged the profiles, like I said, but on top of that, we provide the flexibility to the end customer as well. So even if, okay, so then for whatever reason they're connecting with a customer or something that they find something new that we haven't addressed in our profiles, they can still go in and adjust it in real time. It's a customer programmable interface that they can go in and add, remove, modify any part of the SIP message.
So let's move into the next part. How do you select one of these devices?
So yeah, so SBC, this comes in many forms and shapes, and you'll see SBCs being offered as part of PBXs, integrated in PBXs, as part of router devices, or as standalone devices. There are many different models, and there are two aspects to it. One is how you're actually deploying. What's your deployment model for the SIP trunking? One interesting another survey that Infonetics did is to understand how enterprises are actually deploying SIP trunk. So I talked about consolidation brings a lot of benefit. That's what they call it, centralized here. So there's still a good portion of the customers actually using that centralization approach to get a benefit. But there's still quite a bit who's actually doing a distributed, which means you're running SIP trunks at each location. Which is very much like a PRI replacement model, except that you're not running PRI, you're running SIP. So there are benefits of that, and there's a lot of criteria in terms of what you really want to do, whether you want to do a step-by-step upgrade of each site, or you want to be more aggressive and consolidate and really get the cost benefit out of that. So that's the deployment model perspective, and based on what you pick, you have opportunities to deploy SBC at each site or at a centralized location, at redundant data centers. You can also put it in a third-party cloud network where you actually have all your sites connecting to before you actually go to the SIP trunk provider. So there are many ways to do that. But what you really need to understand is when you're buying an SBC, what is important, right? So there are a few must-haves. Definitely, it needs to solve a security problem. That's what it's designed for. So it has to have a robust security in terms of DOS protection and blacklisting capabilities and many other such. Interoperability, as we have been talking about here, is important. Having a certification with PBX is a good criteria, but something that needs to be evolved because every time a new version comes out, you have to get it certified again. So it is important that your SBC cert is interoperable with the PBXs you have. And the third most important is easy to manage. Those are the three must-haves, and probably you will get those kind of capabilities in one form or the other from every SBC vendor out there in the market. What separates whether it's a more sophisticated and comprehensive SBC versus it just does the job is the rest of the 5 capabilities I've listed here. One is, can it go beyond security? Can it go beyond just the DOS protection? Can it actually look into what is coming into my network and determine some patterns? Can it protect some level of fraud that is going on in my network? So SBC, seeing every packet, every SIP messages coming in, there's a lot of IP SIP-based attack that are happening in the market. And SBCs do have, some of the SBCs do have those capabilities, and definitely the GENBAND has invested in that area to make sure we can look at those patterns and protect any kind of fraud happening. Second is having the capability and the flexibility to adapt to the interworking team needs in real time. That is extremely important because no matter how much certification you've done with a PBX, or any UC system, you'd always find a situation where your SIP doesn't work with another device. So you need that tool, that flexible message manipulation tool at your disposal to really adjust and adopt those conditions in real time. So that is a very important capability. The third is, depending on the size of an enterprise, how much session management and routing you're doing, how much optimization you're doing. Do you have many DIDs? You have across many PBXs? You want to consolidate dial plans? You want to do, if you're a call center, you want to do load balancing. Those are some really advanced capabilities that comes into an SBC, and definitely GENBAND has those. And fourth, definitely on the quality of service. And not just at a particular location, but can you do a quality of service assurance network-wide? So if you've deployed multiple SBCs in the network, can you actually centrally view the quality of at each location and manage it centrally? Last but not the least, it's important to know that the SBC you're selecting doesn't lock you to one particular architecture. So it needs to be software-based, it can scale as you need, and it allows you to deploy whether in your network or in the cloud, however architecture you pick.
Can you then get into the three solutions that you offer as GENBAND?
Yeah, so GENBAND has a pretty broad portfolio of solution when it comes to real-time communications. Definitely we are one of the industry leaders in SBC. We have a pretty broad portfolio of our SBC depending on the range of scale you need. We are all software-based solution, and having some sophisticated intelligent session management as we talked about. We also offer a call application controller. This is more in terms of unified communication as a service, unified communication capabilities and centralized session management capabilities that are that enables enterprises to evolve not just adoption of SIP for SIP trunking, but to bring in the unified communication capabilities, instant messaging, presence, mobility, and other aspects. So those are from a product standpoint, and then you can buy them as products, or you can have those as a service from one of our cloud solutions, which is branded as Nuvia. So those are really the three offerings that we have for enterprises.
Can you just discuss these resources for a minute here?
Yeah, so one of the things, as you see on the left-hand side here, we're doing a webinar on December 9th. I encourage whoever is listening to this discussion to join that. We will have some of our customers actually talking about their SBC deployment and the learnings from that. So it will be a good webinar. I'll be moderating it. And then we have a few application notes and white paper that goes into details of the benefits of consolidating SIP trunks across multiple locations and how to solve the interoperability challenges in multi-vendor environment.
Well, thank you very much, Ashish. I appreciate the time and the insights you've given us.
Thank you, Craig.